It's the only event that truly brings the entire end-to-end supply chain under one roof. The opportunity to get in front of thousands of decision makers. It's just an entire melting pot of opportunities you get to take advantage of while there. So all of that access under one roof is the key. This would be the most efficient way.
Marketing, like a symphony, is a harmonious blend of instruments, but without the proper direction, it's just noise. Welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show, presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. From the art of storytelling to the science of data, we'll uncover marketing strategies that drive success. How do you get inside the minds of some of the largest global shippers in the world? CSCOs, what are they doing to navigate today's times? And do you want a glimpse of some of the most innovative technologies in the space today? Tanzil Uddin at Manifest, a Hive Corporation, and Ralph Henderson discuss these and more reasons why you should be packing your bags for Manifest. Now, here's your host and supply chain marketing guide, Ralph Henderson.
Trade shows are where the supply chain marketing professional spends a lion's share of their budget. Is it where we get a lion's share of our business? Hi, I'm Ralph Henderson. I'm the host of the Supply Chain Marketing Show, brought to you by Supply Chain Brain Media. And we talk about a near and dear topic this month when we talk about trade shows in the supply chain space. Having been in the industry since 1991 and producing these sort of shows since 2009, one of the most common questions I get is, Ralph, what trade shows should I go to? And it's a valid question. You have the horizontal trade shows, which are industry shows, which cover a lot of ground over a bunch of different areas. And then you have the vertical shows, that are specific in a particular area. And I often tell people you want to think about, if you can, ideally looking at a horizontal and a vertical, because that's going to create an axis to allow you to go after that show in the middle. Because look, at the end of the day, what trade shows is they are a lead gen initiative, but they're also a branding initiative. And that is where you'll get the most benefit. So lots of shows have been around. Lots of shows have done well. Some shows, unfortunately, have not. We've got a new kid on the block. And when I say new, I'm talking a handful of years here that's done really well in my opinion, and I think in the industry's opinion. And we're excited about talking about that show today. And that show is Manifest. Today, we have Tanzil Uddin, the SVP of Content and Partnerships at Manifest, a Hive Corporation, here to talk to us. Now, look, Tanzil, he's worked with chief supply chain officers. He's worked with shippers. He's worked with people who the supply chain marketing professional is communicating to, wanting to connect with, and Tanzil's got a great history of doing that successfully. So that's why we wanted to bring him here to talk to us as supply chain marketing professionals about connecting with the shippers, but also talk about this kind of cool show that's going on in February in 2026 at the Venetian in Las Vegas called Manifest. Tanzil, welcome to the show.
Ralph, love that introduction. Happy to be the new kids on the block. Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. So let's dive right into it. And the obvious question is, what makes Manifest unique in the supply chain and logistics industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been in a fortunate position over the past handful of years, as you put together what we call an ecosystem event. It's the only event that truly brings the entire end-to-end supply chain under one roof, whether you are in plan and source or make and deliver, essentially. It's consisting of some of the world's largest shippers and brands and supply chain leaders, as well as some of your more exciting startups, your investors, and your more established companies, infrastructure players that are operating across the global supply chain. And I'd say what's truly differentiated it, in addition to that, it's where conversations kind of go beyond theory, right, into these real deals, real partnerships and pilots that come out of it.
I love it. Yeah, and I really like the origin to consumption thing. I know in the food industry they like to say, from farm to face, and in other industries, right, conception to consumption. And that's cool because with supply chain being so prevalent now since the pandemic, to have a show, and you guys started up. This was the vision. You guys started up the year that happened. So how fascinating that you've been around for these now 5 years, and started up in that environment. So let me ask you this, and this is really cool as it relates to the supply chain space being attractive now. We do have a lot of startups, especially with all the technology going on, and the different opportunities. So what kind of opportunities does Manifest create for these startups looking to kind of break into or scale within this big supply chain ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. Startups it's certainly one of the big pillars of our audience and who's in the room. We follow the funding, and there's quite a lot of funding going into really the next wave, if you may, of technologies in our space. And I would say for startups that get involved, you know, they don't just get a booth, that traditional approach. To your point on ROI, of course, that's there, but it's not just getting a booth, in terms of how we approach it. They get the opportunity to get in front of thousands of decision makers, those who can either become customers or partners or investors. And a lot of the companies that have attended or participated at Manifest, this past year or previous years, are now scaling globally because this is where they either made the right connections at the right time, or they just synced with the right person at a right session or at the correct roundtable, and everything led from there. So I would say startups kind of go beyond the traditional, let's say, expo approach to more intimate, organic, tangible conversations while they're there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I will tell you, and I don't think I've ever told you this, there's a pretty large brand name out there that if I said it, everybody in the supply chain space would recognize. And year two, when they asked me what show they should go to, and I had gone to the first Manifest, I recommended this one. Just recently, we were talking about preparing for this show, and they said, thank you. That was one of the best trade show suggestions I've ever gotten. And I mean that. I know I haven't told you that, but that's how they feel about your show. Now, this is an established brand. Like I said, this is somebody who's known. And so what I would ask you is, for those folks, because we are brought to you by Supply Chain Brain Media, who's been around, for 30 years. Next year, when we come to Manifest, they know a lot of these established brands. What's in it for them?
Yeah, absolutely. They're a big focal point. Some of our largest sponsors and partners also are your established players. And I would say it's similar where, number one, the first side to it is you're not just getting a standard booth or speaking session. Beyond that, if I'm an established company, it's the sheer access to the presence of the supply chain leadership under one roof, where I get to actually benchmark with peers and those that I want to partner with or work with in the future, just to hear where their headspace is, what they're prioritizing in their supply chains, how they're approaching ongoing disruptions or geopolitical tension and risks, and so on and so forth. That's one, is just that benchmarking and then assessing, because we have the next wave or those startups or young entrepreneurs in the room. You also get a chance to assess of what's out there. What are some of the innovative technologies that are set to transform our space, quite frankly? So it's really a mix of that assessment, that benchmarking, and it's just an entire melting pot of opportunities you get to take advantage of while there.
We'll be back after this brief message.
In today's complex supply chain, marketing has never been more critical. But are you leveraging the full potential of your marketing efforts? Supply Chain Brain Media created 2 resources to help you discover what's new and what works. The Supply Chain Marketing Group series is designed to educate you on services and how to implement them into your marketing program. On the Supply Chain Marketing Show, hear firsthand how experts are implementing the elements from the 5 rings of supply chain marketing to drive results. Ready to elevate your marketing game? Schedule a 30-minute consult today. Email Morgan at supplychainbrainmedia.com. Supply Chain Brain Media, your guide to marketing success.
And now back to our show.
So now let's look at it from the shipper's perspective. These chief supply chain officers, they're coming to these shows, and obviously they're looking for their ROI, they're looking for their agenda and kind of the WIFM, what's in it for me perspective. So what's the most valuable takeaway that they get from a show like Manifest?
Yeah, and I love this question because I would say it's also close to my heart because I've worked with the shippers or chief supply chain officers that have come to our show throughout the years since we launched it. And it's one of the things that are top of mind for the entire team. It is the largest makeup of who the manifest attendee is. It's quite frankly a operating officer, the chief procurement officer, the chief supply chain officer, or a similar VP level leader from some of the largest shippers in the world, your brands, your manufacturing companies, but also your 3PLs or freight forwarders or brokers. It's that leadership member that we look to bring under one roof into Manifest. And so, a few things for them. Number one is if I'm looking at a chief supply chain officer, it's something that we launched this year, and I'm exceptionally happy and proud about is our leadership suite, where, throughout the first couple of years of Manifest, we probably only had a handful of chief supply chain officers or related leaders come to the show. This past February, for year four of Manifest, we had over 60 of them. So not only did we have them in the room and participating in sessions on their own accord, they also got a chance to just engage with each other via what we call our leadership suite, which is a private forum for them to just sync with each other and talk about real issues that are hitting at home for them, knowing that it is a private setting and off the stage, off record, if you may. To the point now, as we're planning for next year, we already have 70 confirmed, and are expecting over 100 of them this time around. So the word of mouth has been incredible, and I think it's just that rare chance to be able to benchmark with other peers behind closed doors and explore some of the real solutions, but also then see what are some of the new technologies that I get to have access to via Manifest while attending. So again, it's kind of like that serendipitous component that we're helping to enable for them and similar leaders at that position.
Yeah, you just brought up a really good point for a question, and that is, a lot of people in the supply chain space, we're very tactical, we're very tactile, we're very reactionary, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's just kind of our culture, and that's who we are and what we do. But thankfully, again, with everything going on, what's been fun is the forecasting, the vision, the prognosticating, if you will. And I just want my more educated people in the room to know, hey, I know a few of those words too. Okay. So let's talk about looking ahead, right? I mean, you guys now, like you said, you're talking to these chief supply chain officers. You're talking to these people about what's going on and where they're going. So what are some of the broader trends in the supply chains that you're seeing that's being reflected in the conversations and some of the things that people are now going to be diving into?
Yeah, I would say it's a great question, and this is reflected across our programming, what's in the expo. And I think what comes to mind, there are three areas that just shine through my conversations, the team's conversations. It's number one, it's the word resilience, but resilience through diversification, and what that means for us, whether it be suppliers, partners, third-party companies that we're working with for diversification internally. That's one that I would say it comes to mind pretty often. The second, of course, is digital acceleration, whether it be AI, automation, visibility tools, but the name of the game seems to be how are we automating some of this? How are we mitigating our risk? How are we accelerating our decision making, and how is technology helping with that decision making and equipping us? And number three, I would say sustainability is one that comes up pretty often. It is now being a business driver, not just a checkbox. And all of this, now we have other new areas like cold chain that we've introduced for next year. It has its own stage and pavilion. There's an entire segment just for procurement, looking at the global supplier base, diversification, key issues like the nearshoring, reshoring, onshoring. And what we're seeing is at Manifest, these themes will become more actionable. It's going to become more actionable with startups, with investors, and global operators being all under one roof in the same conversations.
Yeah, no, and thank you for some of the people out there with their bingo cards. They get to check off AI because you've mentioned that
Yeah,
now.
they do.
So we're not allowed to have a conversation in the supply chain space anymore without talking about it. But what's really cool is you've got leaders who are not just talking about it, but they're actually kind of diving into it. The other thing I liked about what you said, is you're looking at these specific areas like procurement, like planning, cold chain. These are things that in the supply chain space, as much as the people who are in it might think they're commonplace or ubiquitous or whatever, they're really not,
No.
Tanzil. They're not. I mean, again, as somebody who goes to many, many, many shows a year, I can tell you, this is why I wanted to do this show with you and talk about this because your show is still relatively new and there are a lot of people in the supply chain space and they do come to me specifically because of my experience and background and want to know what's out there. And I'm trying to give them, hey, go to the established shows, go to the ones you've been doing for a long time. Certainly you want to continue to connect with and brand with and do lead gen with, a lot of those initiatives that you've built relationships with. But don't underestimate the stuff that's going on out there that is now focusing in the different areas, like what you're talking about at Manifest. So, I mean, maybe I'm a nerd and maybe, this says more about that about me, but that's exciting. I mean, I think, we need to have more of that. So here's to me question of the show. And that is so what so first of all, I have to be registered, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So if you haven't already registered, Tanzil will give you some information on that. But if you have, let's talk about preparing for the show because now we're at that place where we need to get ready and we want to have the most success because this show is for supply chain marketing professionals and we want them to be successful. We want them that in the next 12 months they have their best year ever and we'd love to be a part of that somehow. So, Tanzil, help us help these supply chain marketing professionals and how they can best prepare for this show.
Yeah, to best prepare for Manifest, and we're coming up against about 4 months away from the show, and this is kind of the sweet spot, if you may, when it comes to the
Right.
lead up to our event, and we're in full prep mode right now. Couple things that's going to happen in the next few weeks. One is our agenda or draft agenda, which will consist of times and some of the topics and themes that are being covered through the 3 days. That will be shared publicly soon. So it'll be accessible on our website, our LinkedIn page, everything. Our sponsors section will be updated, so you get a chance to see who is exactly on the expo, what are some of the technologies you can expect to see and interact with while at an event like ours. So the best thing I would say is go to our website, which is manifestvegas.com, follow our LinkedIn page to get those those updates in real time. And to prep for it, the best thing that I would say is take a look at our speakers page, take a look at our sponsors page, and identify some of the people that you already know and already working with. Ping them, send them a message, and just ask them why they're involved with Manifest. What are they doing at Manifest? Are they speaking? Are they sponsoring? I think the best thing to do is enable some of those, start those conversations early as you can with respect to your time during the lead up, and do that over every week that we start updating you in terms of who's confirmed. That's the first thing I think is access to LinkedIn and the website. The second part of it is get in touch with myself or the team members because I know we're talking about people that are registered. If you're not registered, you're on the fence, as a maybe to be there, I would recommend reaching out to any of us for us to just talk to you and identify what you care about, what hits at home for you, and how someone like you can get involved at an event like ours, especially considering, that we're 4 months away. There's always areas that we look for people to participate in, whether it be the expo, on stage, and other related formats. But yeah, that would be the best way, I would say, and the best thing to do is to start now.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And so, again, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to enlighten, we're trying to inform. There's so many shows out there, and Supply Chain Brain and Supply Chain Brain Media is I mean, my goodness gracious, we're connected with so many of them. So, we just want you, the supply chain marketing professional, to know, just like Manifest, Supply Chain Brain is also here to serve. We're also here to help. And that's what we want to do. We want the industry to be better. We're an abundance minded kind of organization. And that's why we love the folks at Manifest and the folks at Hive, is because they are as well. Most of the folks we do collaborations with, most of the folks where we go on site and we do video shoots where we interview people. And oh, by the way, we'll be doing that at Manifest. We'll have a studio set up. We'll be interviewing shippers, we'll be interviewing solution providers. And if you're somebody who wants to, get involved in any of that, that's another benefit, another way, that you can add to your brand, your business development. So, Tanzil, parting thoughts, as far as kind of, Manifest, you've had the show now, like I said, ideally right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yep.
So what are some things that, people might be able to experience, or what are some things that you have heard that people have seen or done or whatever that will get the supply chain marketing professional to really now start to think about what does those next 12 months look like, and how can Manifest be a part of it?
For sure, for sure. Number one for me, it's going to be I'm going to walk away with partners and ideas that I can implement this next quarter, not just the next decade. That's number one. Number two is, even if I look at, which we didn't get to, but even like these investors, for example, where this would be the most efficient way for me to get access to curated deal flow, quite frankly, in supply chain tech. I'm not flying around the world to meet founders. They're all here under one roof. So it's you then have the customers there that can validate that traction. And again, the serendipitous word, it's everyone getting a chance to hear from each other of, this is what we're prioritizing. If I'm a supply chain leader, if I'm a startup or established technology company, this is what I'm hearing the supply chain leaders prioritizing. So this is how I can work on my technology and offering and evolve it. And then from the investor's perspective, is this is where the future is headed. This is where I need to keep an eye out for my next portfolio company, or this is what I need to keep an eye out for to help my existing companies accelerate and evolve their offerings. So all of that access under one roof is the key. And again, like to my point, is decisions that we can make over the next quarter, not over the next few years, is the key thing for us.
Yeah, and you hit on something important, and I want the audience to know, when investors are looking at specific shows, and they're getting connected to those shows. Look, these people do the research and they do the digging for a living. And so if they're looking at shows and this is one of those shows, this is probably a show you want to think about. And look, the cool thing is Supply Chain Brain and Manifest, again, have been connected at the hip since the beginning of the show. But Tanzil and I aren't financially connected in any way with what we're doing here. I mean, basically, Tanzil is somebody who represents a show that we believe in, that I believe in, and we're an organization, a media outlet that he believes in and that Manifest believes in. So that's what's fun, is we want you guys to know, philanthropically, we're trying to do what we can to make you successful personally and professionally, but also to make the industry better. So with that, Tanzil, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see the success of Manifest for this coming cycle and for many, many, many more to come. And for those of you out there, if you've attended and or plan to, reach out. Let us know. Let us hear about it. Give us what you think about it. We would love to get that feedback. And if you're going to be there, by all means, let's get connected. And until we see you then, may the next 12 months be your best year ever.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
To discover how you can blend your marketing instruments into a harmonious sound and rise above the noise, schedule a 30-minute consultative session. Email morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Again, that email address is morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. If you have any questions or episode suggestions, you can send those to morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Supply Chain Marketing Show presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. This is an omni-channel production in conjunction with PWE Media.